The First Omen. For centuries, the North had known war. Clans fought clans, kings fought kings, and monsters rose from the deep forests and the frozen seas. But even in the darkest winters, the world still followed the same ancient rhythm. The sun rose, the winds moved, the gods watched from the sky, until the day the Worldbreaker fell. The battle that destroyed the Titans shook the bones of the earth itself. Mountains cracked, fjords split open like broken shields. Entire glaciers collapsed into the sea. When the Titan's body finally sank beneath the endless ice, the warriors believed the Age of Monsters had ended. They were wrong, because that day did not end the Age of Monsters. It began something far worse. For the first time in 1,000 years, the sky above the frozen north changed. At first it was only a faint light, a strange glow stretching across the night sky like a wounded star. The elders believed it was nothing more than the northern lights dancing above the mountains. But the color was wrong. The aurora was not green. It was black, a shadow spreading across the heavens, swallowing the stars as it moved slowly across the horizon. The hunters were the first to notice it. Far in the northern forests, where the snow reached the chests of the wolves and the ancient pines stood like silent giants, the animals began to behave strangely. Wolves stopped hunting. Ravens circled endlessly above the trees. Even the great bears of the frozen caves refused to leave their dens. Something had changed in the world. Something the beasts understood before the humans did. 3 days after the black aurora appeared, the sea changed. The fishermen of the western fjords had sailed those waters since the time of their grandfathers' grandfathers. They knew every current, every tide, every hidden rock beneath the dark waves. But that morning the sea was still, not calm. Still the wind had vanished. The waves did not move. Even the gulls refused to fly above the water. Old sailors whispered that the ocean itself was holding its breath, because something beneath the surface had awakened. No one dared sail that day. In the village of Skarnford, an old seer named Holdrick stood outside his wooden hall and watched the sky. Holdrick had lived through more winters than anyone in the north could remember. His beard was white as glacier frost, and his blind eye carried the scar of a war fought long before most warriors were born. But even without sight in that eye, he could feel the sky, and what he felt terrified him. The black aurora moved like a wound across the heavens, slow, alive. Watching, Holdrick raised his staff toward the sky and spoke the words that no one in the village had heard in generations. The omen has come. The warriors around him fell silent. No one asked what he meant, because every child in the north had heard the old stories. Stories about the final age of the world. Stories about the war that would destroy gods and giants alike. Stories about a time when the sky itself would turn against the earth, Ragnarok. Holdrick lowered his staff slowly. This is the first sign. That night the wolves returned. But they did not come as hunters. They came as messengers. From the dark forest beyond the village, dozens of wolves gathered along the tree line. Their eyes reflected the black light of the aurora above. They did not attack. They simply watched the village, waiting as if they were guarding something, or warning it. One young warrior named Leaf stepped forward with his spear. But before he could throw it, Haldrick raised his hand. No, Leaf frowned. They are beasts. Haldrick shook his head slowly. Not tonight. The old seer looked at the wolves. They feel it too. The aurora above them pulsed like a living shadow. And for a moment, every wolf in the forest raised its head and howled. The sound rolled across the mountains like thunder. Far beyond the village, beyond the fjords, beyond the glaciers that had not moved in 10,000 years, something beneath the ice opened its eyes. Deep in the frozen darkness of the northern world, an ancient prison had begun to crack. A creature older than the first kings of Midgard shifted beneath miles of ice and stone. Chains carved by forgotten gods trembled. The black aurora above the world pulsed again. The creature felt it. The call, the same call that had awakened monsters, stirred the oceans, and silenced the beasts of the forest. A call older than the gods themselves. The creature moved, and the ice above it shattered. Back in Skarnford, Haldrick collapsed to his knees. The warriors rushed toward him. What did you see? The old seer's hands trembled. His voice was barely a whisper. The gates. Leaf leaned closer. What gates? Holdrick looked toward the northern horizon, toward the endless glaciers where no man dared travel. The gates of Ragnarok. The black aurora spread wider across the sky. Stars disappeared behind its shadow, and somewhere in the frozen darkness of the north, the first prison had already begun to break. Ragnarok had not started, but the world had just seen its first omen, and there would be many more. If you enjoyed this Viking dark fantasy story, like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next chapter of Frozen Saga. New monsters, ancient legends, and forgotten gods are awakening across the frozen north. This saga is far from over.